There is a small opening into the day that closes the moment you begin your plans. What you can plan is too small for you to live. What you can live wholeheartedly will make plans enough for the vitality hidden in your sleep. To become human is to become visible while carrying what is hidden as a gift to others. To remember the other world in this world is to live into your true inheritance. You are not a troubled guest on this earth. You are not an accident amid other accidents. You were invited from another and greater night than the one from which you just emerged.
Welcome to the Self-Care Goddess podcast, where healing stories, practical self-care strategies, and science-backed tools to regulate stress, feel calm, grounded, and energized come together to help you reclaim your vitality. I'm your host, Rita Savoya, holistic nutritionist, trauma-informed breathwork coach, and founder of Breathwork Barista. This podcast is for women who are ready to restore their energy and radiance, reconnect with their bodies, reawaken their inner power, and redefine self-care as a way of being. Through science meets soul practices, restorative mind-body tools, and real stories of transformation, we'll explore how true well-being can help you live with more joy, vibrant health, and authentic connection to yourself and those you love. Take a deep breath in, let it go, and let's begin. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Self-Care Goddess podcast with today's theme, how do we rewrite the story of our lives, especially in midlife? Some incredible tips and insights from our guests today, but before we get there, as you know, on this podcast, let's give ourselves a few moments of going within. How do we do that? Just following our breath, flowing in through the nose, and then a slight sigh through the mouth. If you feel comfortable and you can do this, you can even lower your gaze and just look at one point, or even entirely close your eyes and just really tuning out what is going on around you and just gifting yourself these few moments of going within, following your breath in through the nose, expanding, feeling that expansion, and then letting it go with a sigh. Slower exhale than usual, and just releasing any tension, anything that might feel tight or tense, letting it go with each and every extended exhale in through the nose and then letting it go more than usual. I now invite you to channel these beautiful inhales and exhales into the area of your heart. Where attention goes, energy flows. So let's energize this beautiful organ that's keeping us alive. And as you inhale and exhale through the area of the heart, I now invite you to visualize someone that you're grateful for today. Living or past, visualize this person as if they were right here in front of you. I invite you to smile and feel the gratitude for them and send it from your heart to their heart. Send all the gratitude, the love, and the appreciation you have for them. Energize their heart, thanking them for being there when you needed them the most, through the good times and the tougher times. And now I invite you to send that love, that gratitude, and the appreciation. Send it back to you. Fill your heart with this beautiful appreciation for being here, listening to this podcast, taking a few moments out of your busy day to just check in, and for doing the work, wanting to improve or learn something new, dedicating this time for you. On your next inhale, flutter your eyes open and come back to us. I love those quick little resets. These are a modification of the quick coherence technique from the HeartMath Institute. So today's guest, very excited to have her on the show, is someone who reminds us of the power of the stories we tell and the lives they shape. Carolyn Flynn is a memoirist, novelist, journalist, and essayist, and the author of Boundless, along with 7 books of transformational nonfiction. Her work has been widely published, and though her TEDx Women Talk, Tell a Better Story, Live a Better Life, she has inspired countless others to step into their truth and live more fully expressed lives. As the founder of the Story Catalyst, Carolyn has spent over a decade guiding others in bringing their stories to life through book coaching, editing, and publishing support, all through a deeply trauma-informed lens. At the heart of her work is a powerful invitation to live your sacred yes, even when life asks you to be brave. And beyond the page, Carolyn is a hiker, a pilgrim, and a desert dweller, someone who deeply appreciates open horizons. Her life soundtrack is Meet Me in the Woods by Lord Huron, and her simple pleasures include a beautiful glass of Spanish Rioja or Tuscan Sangiovese. Carolyn, welcome, welcome, welcome to the Self-Care Goddess podcast. How are you today?
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm so honored. I listen to your show, love it, and I'm eager to dive in with you.
Oh, thank
That
you.
meditation beginning was just gold.
So needed, right? It was literally 2 minutes. I love it. I love it. And it gets us into coherence, our heart, our mind, our bodies, and we're just a lot more receptive when we're in coherence. So it's a beautiful way to start anything, really. So give us a little more background on your personal journey. What first sparked your curiosity to do the work that you're doing now?
Well, I think what really got me going on, hey, this is a book for Boundless, was just sort of this moment when I realized that what I had known was happening all along, which is that I was a single mother of twins and they were going to be leaving at once. And what that meant, they were going out of state, to college because you've got to have that adventure. But two-thirds of my family was leaving at once. And I think there's something beautiful about the parenting relationship because it's built in. The grief is built in. You are actually preparing someone that you love dearly to leave you one day. And one day, so what I realized as I was on the brink of that is that I was experiencing a colossal failure of the imagination as to what my life would be next. I think it was because I was so focused on just nurturing their hearts that it just hadn't occurred to me to stop and go like, and after it will be like this. If I had the thought, I'm sure, but it was a fleeting thought. It was an unanswered question. And that became the genesis of Boundless.
Wow, so beautiful. I love that. How old are they now? The twins?
They're 26 now, so it's been a minute.
Oh, that just flew.
Yeah, so they've charted their way through their adult lives. And still figuring it out. But one thing I was fascinated with as they were 17, and again, our focus was on me, I'm an editor. I was helping them write their college essays, just backing them up and listening to them tell the story of their lives ahead of living them with all of their aspirations and all of the things they dreamed they would become. And so when I started having this colossal failure of imagination for, okay, you're going to go, and who's going to be left here? It's going to be me. I said, well, I'm right in the middle of an experiment about becoming someone new. It's happening right here in my house. And we called our house when they were growing up, and I still call it this, the Be Who You Are house. Because what I wanted more for them than anything else in the world is not to choose this college major or that college major, but to
Mhm.
be who they truly were and find work that brought them alive
Mhm.
because I already had work that brought me alive. Being a writer and knowing deep down that that's my sacred calling is knowing who I am and why I'm alive. Although, as you will see in Boundless, I question that. There's a period of dark night of soul where I don't know what that is. So
Yeah. And so, I mean, that questioning is part of life and reassuring that you are on the right track as well. Sometimes, I mean, I love what I do. We were just talking about it offline. Even if I win billions of dollars, I would still be doing what I'm doing just because it really does just energize me. It's really my purpose and my passion. I think we're speaking the same language here. But sometimes those doubting moments, maybe they're just needed to remind us that we're human and we're going to doubt. And then it's just that it feels so much better when you do get back and reassure yourself that you're on the right track. It makes me feel even more energized. But we're human, so we're going to go through these, especially
yeah,
as an entrepreneur as well.
yeah, I had that experience of really getting down to. I would describe it as getting down to the core diamond within, and
Mm.
there's something about like the sort of outer facts of my life didn't seem to have changed all that much. But what had changed was that core. Father Richard Rohr from the Center of Action Contemplation calls it the immortal diamond. Immortal diamond. It's the part of you that is your essence,
Mhm.
doesn't change. And so then I think coming to that allowed me to go, well, let's other things fall away then. If
Mhm.
this is what the core is, then I could just be here with that and feel safety and peace around being that, as opposed to, I think, probably when we're going through periods of reinvention, I think we're getting out ahead of ourselves a little bit. It feels like you're sort of leaping across a cliff, that there's nothing underneath you. Getting down to that diamond core of who you are means that when you leap, you doesn't feel like a leap. It feels like there's going to be something there to meet you.
Yes, because it's who you truly are. So it's connecting to that. It's reconnecting to that, really. Because then that's why I often it resonates with me when we say remembering who we truly are, right?
Mm.
And just going back to that, because that's who we are. And then just life. What do you think happens? Life gets in the way. We're just socialized, I guess, influenced by maybe not the people that we should be influenced by. But what do you think happens there? Why do we sort of stray away from that?
Yeah, I think it's the culture. It tells us you must be
Mhm.
now. But one thing you know, I couldn't really find empty nest narratives out there that resonated with me. They all felt dry and old and stale.
Mhm.
It's really
Yeah.
sad.
It's true. It's often like a loss of identity or just who you are and so much uncertainty. But I know you speak a little different about it, almost like a hidden power, a superpower. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So before I was an author and a book coach, I was editor of a women's magazine called Sage Magazine. I love the name of it. I didn't name
Mhm.
it, but it means a lot to me because sage, wise, elder, woman.
Right.
And I think when I first started, I was a young woman, so I think I had this idea of sort of sage was also the wise ingenue woman. You know,
Mm.
she's wiser than her years. So the whole time I was editor of that magazine, I was kind of doing what you do, followed my curiosity and asked people about everything. And it meant that I was interviewing a lot of women who already were out there farther along the path than I was. And when I started noticing a common thread in there is that they didn't hit 50 and wind down. They hit 50 and they kicked it. They started doing things that were about the contributions, legacy, making a huge difference. We had a Making a Difference award that we gave to young women. And then at
Mhm.
some point, to celebrate our anniversary, we kind of looked at like who are the women who already have made a difference in this state. So I saw that and I was like, well, then the narrative's not true. You don't just get hit 50 and do a jubilee kind of year and walk on the beach a lot like they do in, medication commercials.
True.
You actually like you're gathering up a full head of steam at that point. I think
Mm.
biologically it's probably has a lot to do with menopause. Actually, even though we think of menopause as exhausting, there's something else that kind of goes away and something else that kicks in. And I feel like that chemically, neurologically has to be a part of what's happening and why our bodies are different as women. We go through more seasons of maid,
Mhm.
mother, sage. Our bodies
Mhm.
are committed, really, genetically. It's in our DNA to have seasons. So
Right.
then I started going like, well, so nobody's defined this season yet. I get to define it. I get to go ask people a lot of questions so I can define it.
Mm. So how would you define it then as do you know that in Japan they call menopause the second spring?
Really.
Yes. So
I love
it's
that.
it's just a rebirth of probably yeah, the kids are not with you. They're at college. You don't have to deal with menstrual cycles anymore. And even I was talking to a fitness expert and she said because our bodies don't go through those hormonal changes, it's actually even easier to get toned, a lot easier than it was when we were menstruating because of the more stable hormonal patterns that happens. And I'm like, great. That sounds amazing. Physically, mentally, emotionally, all of these things that we can take advantage of during this stage. So looking forward to it for sure. But yeah, so what do you think we're doing wrong as a society when it comes to this chapter of life? What are some things that some
Well,
mistakes that you've seen?
I think the culture just sort of still sort of defaults to women are supposed to bear children and be mothers, and when they're done with that, they're done. And that's not
Mhm.
really the case in most societies. I started looking at societies that have wise women elders that really, that idea of the second spring, but like the Council of the 13 Grandmothers. And what are those women doing and what can they do that they couldn't do before because they were occupied with, I mean, and, we don't have to dial too far back into history to where women were getting pregnant every year of their childbearing years and they would have 12 children. What are women doing, you know, even now, apart from that, where most of us are having, 2, 3, 4 children. Some women are not having children. That also just anthropologically, I looked at like who are the ants? The ants who
Mm.
don't have children. We did a story in my magazine called Sparents, Spare Parents. We always need a spare parent. And it's usually the aunts and the grandmothers who are
Mm.
filling those roles. So I just started looking at other cultures. And I think how I would define this stage of life is that you were just more equipped than ever, having
Mm.
put in a lot of years of caregiving. You know a lot about care, and you've got a lot of wisdom about care, but now you're free to care more broadly, more wisely. So I call it care of the earth and each other. That was the common thread when I looked at other cultures, is that there were women who stepped into care of the earth and each other.
And themselves too, right? You have the time now, because so many times I hear women saying, "Oh, it's all about my children right now. They need to be my priority. And then if I have time, I will make some time for me." And I'm just like, because the young girls are listening to this and they're hearing their mom say this. And then what do you think is going to happen? Just as the cycle will continue. So I really do hope that's why I love having conversations like these so that might spark some inspiration for some women to.
Feel like I needed to be a self-care model for my children because I was a single mother. So, if they saw me depleting myself, which I will admit, there were a lot of times when I depleted myself during those years, but I also just would lift myself out of that when I realized I was doing it, is that, I need to show my son that this is not what women do. This is not what you will ask of your sister, your future wife, your children, your daughters. And I'm very, very much wanted my daughter not to fall into the trap that I felt like I was so easily sucked back into, that trap of self-sacrifice, self-care as maybe a hobby that you give lip service to. Let yourself massage every so often. It's self-care goes deeper, deeper than that.
Mm.
So, I was very committed to having conversations like that with the twins so that they could create better conversations with their own selves and in their lives. So, yeah,
Mm.
I admit though, I at the point that I emptied the nest, and this is why this is a story, this is why it became a book, because I had given my all, depleted and exhausted, is because you gave it your all.
Mhm.
That means
That's
you did
true.
the job. You did it. You did it. But now you can be someone else. You really can be someone else. You can build from there. It helped me see it that I have all the freedom in the world. And
Which is
I
exciting. For me, it's super exciting, right? To maybe
yeah.
start over or do something you always wanted to do is just having that time now to do it. The resources for some of us as well. I actually have a client, I'm going to be signing her up very soon, and she just wants a 2.0 version of her. She's going to be retiring soon. And she's at this stage. She is so excited to be doing the things that she always wanted to do. And I'm just like, yes, this is how we do it, right? Excited and to actually have the freedom, the time, and hopefully financial freedom as well. So you recently wrote about emotional agility and getting unstuck, something I can definitely relate to. So and so many can resonate with as well. How would you define emotional agility in a way that feels accessible? And what does it really look like? To think like, a 20 something in this stage of life.
Yeah, my piece in ARP kind of touches on that. The hint to getting unstuck is to think like a 20 something. So that was sort of my first little nugget when I started asking this question was It's about flexibility. They
Mm,
expect that. We get emotionally rigid at some point in life. So,
mm,
because we collect a certain wisdom. If this happens, that's always bad, so don't do that. That's emotional rigidity. Emotional agility was is not necessarily so. You can rewrite the script. So you can try things. You don't have to have all the answers. I think when you get to a certain point in life that people look to you because you do have a lot of the answers. You really do. You've really worked through a lot of things. But then we can become really rigid and lose our agility when we lose our curiosity. I think curiosity is the other piece of that. So, one of the
mhm,
things I mentioned in that article is I told people when I came back to Albuquerque, where my empty nest was, I end up taking a job across the country and moving back in one summer. But I come back to Albuquerque and I say, it's going to be Albuquerque 2.0.
mm.
Lived here for 25 years, but I want to see it as though it is a completely new place. And I was sort of begging and praying for that to sort of descend on me. And there was one day when I walked out, it was actually a friend's father's memorial, but I walked out in Old Town Albuquerque and the sun was just dazzling that day. And all of a sudden, all the colors seemed magical. And I said, today is the day I'm going to go around the corner and I'm going to go to that soap shop that makes the Sandia soap that kind of looks like the mountains and has all these different scents. And I'm going to experience every single one of them. And I'm going to make a care package for my twins who are away at college. It was just the sensory piece of that. It was suddenly seeing the San Felipe Church in Old Town and the gazebo and all of these wonderful touristy places that I told myself, oh, I don't need to go to the touristy places because like I live here. And then I thought like, what if I'm a tourist in a town
Mhm.
that I've known since forever? And that just sort of magically opened all kinds of doors. I told my friends, take me to a place you think I've never been. Just take a guess. And they took me out to places that, like Valles Caldera is a very beautiful part of New Mexico. It's where there was this volcano and then it crashed down on itself. So it's this beautiful little valley in the mountains, green, gorgeous, things like that. So take yourself to places you have never been. Get lost is one of my other things. Let yourself get lost.
Mm, I
This is
know.
where we really are, like, oh, I can't get lost. I don't have time to get lost.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
maybe.
what yeah, before all the maps when I used to travel, I was like, that is the fun part of just getting lost, right? In a city that you have no idea where to go and stuff. Mind you, during the day, of course, I would do it, but that was so fun. And you just end up meeting someone or just doing something super random. That's why, Carolyn, I can never do cruise ships. I'm like, it is way too structured for me. I need to get on and off on someone else's time. So I'm like, I think I'll hold off on cruises for now. But I love that curiosity, just being open to it. You just never know what it might bring you and
Yeah,
using your senses to explore. Yeah, I
just
love it.
walking down a new street.
It's
Just
so good for your brain too, right? Yeah, it feels good. It actually feels good. Neuroplasticity happening there. New neural networks. Yeah, it's just an all around such a beautiful thing to keep that curiosity alive for sure. And as kids, we just have so much of it, right? And then as you know, life gets in the way and we just become less and less curious and we're kind of more rigid. So, in terms of emotional agility, is this something that we can learn through having these experiences and just staying curious? Or what are some other ways we can strengthen that?
I think meditation's at the core of all of it because what meditation does is it changes your brain in the way it works. What you're doing with meditation, as you know, because you lead people through the meditations and breath work, is that you're creating more space between stimulus and response. You're reducing your reactivity, and there's just enough of a pause in there that you can really think in a much more concerted and considered and wiser way what your response will be. And meditation teaches your brain to do that to the point that it almost becomes trait mindfulness. My daughter ended up she has a degree in psychology and she has explored mindfulness meditation as part of her work, her research. And it's ironic because when she was 6 years old, I wrote a book that came out from Penguin called The Complete Idiot's Guide to Mindfulness Meditation.
Ah,
And I had a book signing in Phoenix, Arizona at Changing Hands, which is a really great independent bookstore. And the twins were along with me because I combined a book signing with a spring break road trip. So what was in it for them? The spring break road trip. What was in it for me? Book signing. But my kids sat there in the audience and just took notes on the little worksheet that I'd given the audience. And they had just been learning to write. And then I thought nothing of it. Nothing, nothing, nothing of it. And then it turns out that by the time my daughter goes off to college, she's working in the empathy lab at the Colorado University, Denver, and she's really studying the neurology around mindfulness meditation. But what trait mindfulness is one of the things that kind of came out of some of her research is just Richie Davidson has a great book on this. It's just when you practice, you develop the trait so that it's something that you just do. You're not doing
mhm.
it only in sitting meditation. You're doing it when you're driving, when you're talking to people,
Right.
when you're ordering your coffee and the barista's running behind, just all the things that we do in
Mhm.
our lives. And it changes that ability. It really, I think, kind of reduces that emotional rigidity. It goes like, well,
Mm,
necessarily, well, what if it was different? What if I responded in a different way?
mhm. Yeah. So, is there actually, I'd love to have your daughter on the podcast too and talk a little
Oh,
bit about that. I'm a big neuroscience geek, and I love to get into the details. So, maybe.
oh, no.
Um,
I interviewed Lisa Feldman Barrett for I think it was for that ARP article, and the reason I interviewed Lisa Feldman Barrett, who her book is The Science of Emotions: How Emotions Are Made,
mhm.
because my daughter was working on her final thesis, and she had to listen to a podcast from Lisa Feldman Barrett, and we're driving somewhere, so I'm listening to it too, and then, years later, I go, "Well, that's the person I should interview for my story on emotional agility."
Right.
Yeah, but my daughter would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, in terms of meditation, do you think that there is like, how do people start? Because I just find I get a lot of pushback and I can't sit still. Even during my breathwork experience and with when people come to my in person, I was just too much in my head. And what tips can we give those individuals that are way too much in their head, constantly just rationalizing, making their to-do lists, and just that monkey brain will not turn off. So what are some tips that you can recommend to those listening or viewing this podcast that sounds like them?
I think the biggest shift is the expectation that meditation
Mhm.
is your mind, that that's what's supposed to happen, or that you're supposed to come to it, what they call mind, or that if you do it, you will have a calm mind. And that's not what meditation is. It's you're greeting the mind. You're greeting it as it is. If you can't sit still that during meditation, you are like 98% of us because we live in a world where it's the attention economy. Someone is always trying to get your attention, and we feel distracted all the time. So when you greet the mind, you're going to greet that distracted 21st century screen driven, doom scroll driven mind. And the only way that you start to soften that sort of crazy mind is by meditating and bringing it back. It's not the technique of being calm, it's the technique of going like, my little puppy mind ran off to think about all the tasks I have to do today. And I am noticing that I'm not clearing my mind. I'm bringing the little puppy back, and it helps. The breath work is probably the most important technique because it brings you right there into the present moment.
Mm.
I often have a word that I use. We talk about in my meditation group, let the mind drop into the heart. And that might resonate with you because of
Mm,
because the heart has coherence. The heart is really another brain
yeah.
in the body.
Mm,
But that's one thing when I notice my little puppy mind ran off, I
mm,
go, let the mind drop into the heart. Or sometimes I just do a word, love,
mm,
just that word. And I'll just say, when I do 20 minutes, if someone somewhere, meditation gods were tracking, what are all the thoughts that Carolyn had in the 20 minutes? There would be that moment when I say, let the mind drop into the heart, or I say love, or I'm breathing more slowly, but there would be all the other stuff too. And it's because I'm just training my brain. So that's one thing that I would say to people. But I think what I would add to it is that writer perspective. One of the best things a writer ever, ever, ever has is your observational ability. It's your ability to see the world that matters the most and how well you write. So you need to know your mind. And you need to know your true mind, not the chattering mind. And I consider it really just a skill that writers need to have. But I also, the writer Dani Shapiro, who's written many beautiful memoirs, she says, I write to know what I am feeling. So then it becomes self care, right? Because if you
Hmm.
don't know what you're feeling, you really don't know what you are transmitting out into the world. So you don't have to be a writer to want to know that. You want to know how you're showing up in the world. You want to know why you're showing up in the world the way you are showing up in the world. So that's the piece I would add is just
Yeah.
there's a beautiful thing about studying the way that your mind tracks and all it's some of that chatter is actually play and joy and imagination.
Hmm.
And that's something that we shut down. That's probably why some people go into meditation and they feel unsuccessful. They're going, wait a minute, my imagination's running wild here. And
Yeah.
that I say, let your imagination run wild. Find out what it does.
Mm. That's so true. I love that. And you're right. Some people do find breath work a little easier than meditation, and I find that it could be your gateway to meditating, right? But I'm going to use that, Carolyn. Drop your mind into your heart. Thank you. That's amazing. I'm going to use that as well. And you're absolutely right. There are actually more signals that go from your heart to your brain than the other way around. So
Right.
really being connected to your heart is such a powerful tool that you can have because then all of your decisions are coming from in here, which that means you're aligning yourself to your authentic wants and wishes and the missions you're on and so it just becomes a much easier decision to take. So yes, thank you for reminding us of that. So in your book Boundless, you explore the idea of accumulated grief, right? The kind that we don't always realize we're carrying. So how do we begin to tend to that grief in a way that creates more space and not just for healing, but for to feel light again, to experience that lightness again?
Yes, I call it untended grief that maybe you thought you tended to it, but
Mm.
it's there's still some another layer. Sometimes grief doesn't have any logic to it.
Yeah, that's so
So
true. It's a roller coaster. That's how I
it will catch you by surprise all the time.
yeah.
And
Mm.
one of the things that I think I am doing in Boundless, and I hope that I've depicted well out of, one woman's life story. I say that with memoir that the self is the highway to story, and what I was willing to do is use my own self as the highway to everyone's story about emptiness.
Mm.
But what was happening is that a new grief was starting to come up, which is twins will be gone. And then beneath that was my mother died 4 years before the twins graduated. So we did all the things. We had the memorial. She had, some people have a sudden death and it's hard to say goodbye. You don't really get to say goodbye and you're left feeling just very incomplete. That was my father's death. But my mother's death, we knew we had 4 months to kind of prepare, and we really, got to talk through a lot of things. And then, we had a beautiful memorial service for her. So it feels like that's done, right? It wasn't done. When the new grief came up, the old grief just kept pressing up from beneath. And I think it's because when we go through different stages of life and we've lost someone, there's always this thought of like, my mom's not seeing my kids graduate from high school. She's not going to know their children. Just things like that would be an example. But
Mhm.
what really sort of happened most profoundly for me, and this is a scene I'm very happy about writing, is that when my mother died, she gave me her whole dining room set. The table, the chairs, the hutch, all the china, everything. And the reason she gave that to me was because she saw me and then my daughter, Emerald, as the ones who would host the comings together. the
Right.
ones who would hold the celebrations. But
Mm.
when I got the offer to move across the country, preserving that furniture for 10 more years until my daughter had her own house seemed not very practical. So there's a moment when we actually just we I'm thinking about having an auction of all the things. I'm still going like, should I do my mom's stuff? I can't. The things I can't. I can't. If I let go of the things, I don't have my mom anymore. So we actually had the whole dining room set out on the little space out in front of the garage, and my daughter and I and my son kind of joins in for like he's kind of buzzing around like a little bumblebee around it.
Mm.
And we just went through the whole ritual of saying goodbye to every piece of everything. And at the end, my daughter said, Mom, we can auction this too, because I remember. I will
Mhm.
carry it on.
Right.
So that's my story. Probably about grief is about like having that sense that somehow that it will live on through you. And in my case, it's gonna live on through the next generation too. She will share tables with everybody in our family and
Mm.
everybody who is yet to join our family, who is yet to be born. So I would say let yourself notice every time it comes up, when it comes up in a new variation. There's something about having written that. I paid attention, I reflected, I turned it into literature. I have a little substack where I talk about how a life became art, a life became literature. I was willing to do that with those pieces of my life that show up in Boundless. And there's something about that that felt so complete, so honoring of my mother. People will read that and they will know her.
Hmm.
They will have never met her, but they will know her.
Right. Yes. I can definitely resonate with this because the reason why I'm doing breath work and these breath work journeys with people is because it helped me to grieve my aunt's passing. And that for me was an absence in my heart, just like achy absence that through breathing and through connecting with her through the journeys that I went on, it became this loving presence, something that I knew I can always tap into her and her energy and just whenever I needed that. And according to Chinese medicine, we hold grief in our lungs. So breathing your way through a particularly tough moment is is super powerful. So I can resonate. You don't need that physical, those objects there when you have that beautiful, loving, lasting memory and passing it on like you can with either through stories or through your articles and books is so beautiful. So you've spoken about making life design your mission after this transition. What does that look like to consciously, maybe we touched a little bit about this when we talked about emotional agility, but to consciously design a life in this chapter rather than simply reacting to it, which many of us can fall into that trap as well.
I think the life design just it still delights me, and we are 9 years out from the empty nest. I consider it one of my pleasures. I consider it a celebration of freedom.
Mm.
I look upon it as like not work life balance, but work life flow.
Mm.
Everything just flows together. But the other thing that I understand because I had gone through that period of reinvention is, and after years of being stuck,
Mm.
that there were the stuck years really informed that because the stuck years told me I hadn't been asking myself new questions. I hadn't been asking, who am I today? So if you don't mind, I have a poem from David White that I'll read. It's very short, that I use almost as an invocation before I do my conventional to-do list with all the things. But my conventional to-do list has all the things and it has when I'm going to yoga class and when I'm meditating. So
Mm. I
there's
like
that.
that. You're scheduling in that self-care. That's beautiful. That's a big tip for that I often give to my clients. Yes.
One of the anchor points on the schedule.
Mm.
But this is a poem by David White.
Please do.
David White graciously let me have a poem that's at the opening of Boundless. It's beyond, just beyond yourself. So this is called What to Remember When Waking. In that first hardly noticed moment in which you wake, coming back to this life from the other, more secret, movable, and frighteningly honest world where everything began. There's a small opening into the day that closes the moment you begin your plans. When you could, what you can plan is too small for you to live. What you can live wholeheartedly will make plans enough for the vitality hidden in your sleep, To become human is to become visible while carrying what is hidden as a gift to others. To remember the other world in this world is to live into your true inheritance. You are not a troubled guest on this earth. You are not an accident amid other accidents. You are invited from another and greater night than the one from which you just emerged. Now, looking through the slanting light of the morning window toward the mountain presence of everything that can be, what urgency calls you to your one love? What shape waits in the seed of you to grow and spread its branches against a future sky? Is it waiting in the fertile sea, in the trees beyond the house, in the life you can imagine for yourself, in the open and lovely white page on the waiting desk? And I use that to
Beautiful.
remind myself to completely redo my list in the morning because I've become someone else for the night.
Hmm. That's so true. So you write your list the night before and then you revisit it in the morning?
I cross a few things off that I'm not going to do
Right.
because they're not who I am now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because
They're,
we do.
they're the ships from yesterday.
Yes, exactly. And if we give ourselves that moment to pause and reconnect, then we connect with what truly matters, right? And then we're able to modify that list. Because oftentimes you're right. There are a lot of things on there that are not in alignment.
I don't need to do every idea I ever had. And I'm the kind of person who has, 1,000 impossible ideas before breakfast. So I love it. But I don't need to do every idea I ever had. I often say to my book coaching clients is that ideas are like fish. They just want you to catch them while they're fresh, but just catch them. And that's it. They just want to be heard. They don't be done. What you need to ask is, what is mine to do?
And so how do you prioritize? What's your secret?
Well, I'll just tell you a little story about how I decided what my next book would be. I had noticed when I was talking about Boundless that I was saying things like, "Well, Boundless isn't even the best book I can write." And then I was leading a retreat in Montana near Yellowstone, and one of the participants, she was a little worried about me. She goes, "But your book just came out. Aren't you happy about it?" I said, "No, I just realized there's so much more I can do. It was the best I could do at that time, but there is so much more. It's not even the best book." So then I started thinking about that, and I thought, like, well, what is the best book? I realized I had them ranked in my mind or, about the next one I would do and the next one after that. And I was putting the most sacred book about 7th on the list.
Hmm.
So I think it's more like, what's the most sacred thing that you can contribute to the world. You know when you're in your zone of genius versus just your zone of excellence or your zone of competence. And it's comfortable in the zone of competence and it's comfortable in the zone of excellence. The zone of genius is a little uncomfortable because you're going like, well, am I really a genius at it? Am I really meant to do this? But that would be something I would just tell to all of the listeners is just, you know what the sacred one is. You do.
Mm-hmm.
You put it at the top of the list today in some small way. You only need to give it 3 minutes. Maybe you've got 2 hours. 3 minutes, 2 hours, both of them work. Just put the sacred at the top of the list.
And that a lot of it has to do with following your intuition too, right? Just being connected with that, which again, a lot of us are disconnected from it because we're born with it, but
Yeah.
a lot of us are disconnected with it. I think for probably the same reasons why we disconnect with that root, that shining mission and passion of ours. So how do you stay connected with that?
I think meditation teaches you also to notice when you are practicing aversion to something
Hmm.
yourself. It also this is drawing kind of from that Buddhist thread of meditation. Aversion and grasping are the two extreme behaviors, but aversion is just, I was protecting myself from writing the book that was 7th on the list, that I knew, absolutely knew. It's the one that, will be the one that people remember me for,
Mm.
one that I can do. But meditation teaches you to notice when you're doing that.
Mm-hmm,
Meditation
mm-hmm.
teaches you to notice when you're letting the ego talk louder than your heart.
Yeah. Do you want to share with us what this book is about, or you
Yeah,
want to could just come back when it's
um,
ready,
it's
released?
its working title is House of Stone and Light, and it's autobiographical fiction. But the first line is about father and daughter, and it touches on really the it's just the whole resonance of the American dream, and is it lost? Do we still have it? Why does it always reanimate? It does. But the first line is, "My father once told me where dreams are made," and it goes from there.
Very nice. Exciting. Definitely would love to have you back and we can chit chat about that. So, if someone listening right now, Carolyn, feels like they've lost themselves somewhere along the way, what is one gentle way they can begin to come back? I think I know what you're going to say.
What am I gonna say?
Meditation?
Oh, I've already talked about that, so let's see, what else?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna go with this since I've already talked about meditation quite a bit. My father, who will be not unlike the father in House of Stone and Light, because it is autobiographical. But my father once said, "The joy is in the struggle." And I think that that is what I would it doesn't sound like the thing that brings you back. It doesn't sound soothing at all. That does not sound soothing.
Not a gentle way, but it definitely does bring you back. But yes, go ahead.
I think you need people with skin on to show that to you, and to you there's something in you that still has some sort of native faith in something good or better,
Mm.
and can remember who you once were before the struggle turned into despair. And I will say, in Boundless, I reach a point of despair where I'm like, should I go on with this life? Really?
Mm.
Should I? Should I? So I'm at that level. I'm not making light of the struggle. But I would say that it's people with skin on who have been holding you and know you and hold your soul that you turn to. There's a moment when I have a panic attack and I go, I don't like the idea that there are knives in that drawer in that kitchen. I do not want to go downstairs because if I'm near that drawer, I don't like what my mind is doing right now. I was just so I call my sister. I
Mm.
call my sister, and she helped me remember who the whole of who I was. We have a thing that we call the essence of you, and she has an essence of you photo of herself. It's so adorable when she was 2 years old. She's all in her Easter outfit, you know. She's got
Mm.
a little Easter bouquet, and then I have an essence of me photo when I was 5, and I have this big, broad Irish forehead and I'm just a wild child with an imagination. I'm just my pure essence. So maybe that's what I would leave people is like, get yourself back to your essence.
Mm.
Have somebody in your life who holds for you, who the essence of you. Like I keep my sister's photo of her essence of you photo. She keeps mine,
Oh.
and we remind each other because sometimes you just plainly forget.
Mm.
And that why is the joy in the struggle? The joy is in we we walked through that together. So at the end of Boundless, if I could just add this one little piece, turns out that my son has the answer to the complete meaning of life on page
Mhm.
195. And if you read the first part of it, you go like, how would that be possible? He sounds like a teenage boy who's back talking. That's what he sounds like at the beginning of the book. But he turns out he has the answer to the meaning of life on page 295. And it is really about this, is that when we share our lives with somebody, we live little fragments of our soul in each person and they in us. And when we come to those moments where we're like, I don't know if I can get through it. It's some of those little fragments that other people have given to us
Mm.
reanimate the soul and the heart in us so that we can see ourselves in another way and move on to that point past the pain and past the struggle and past the despair. So I think it's just letting people hold you.
Yeah, and being receptive to that help as well. Because I find a lot of times, especially women, are kind of like, I got this, again, that self-sacrificing woman. Not that I don't need any help. They just not open to it or receptive to the help that is definitely available out there. And the struggle reminds me of a really cool story I used to tell my coaching clients about have you heard of this one, the butterfly in the cocoon? And the man watching the butterfly struggle to get out of the cocoon, and he was just watching and watching, and one day he's like, "Oh, this butterfly's not gonna make it. I can't break through." So he just took a pair of scissors and snipped the cocoon open. The butterfly kind of fell out and wasn't the wings weren't strong enough to fly, and it ended up dying. And that just goes back to that struggle. That struggle was needed. The butterfly needed to struggle through that opening of the cocoon so that it can strengthen its wings. And by the man that was watching, by cutting the cocoon open, the butterfly wasn't strong enough. So going back to that struggle, understanding that sometimes it definitely strengthens us for sure, and depending on who's surrounding you and who you have to tap into and help you get through it. But I love that. That's beautiful. I like that. That essence photo. Now I'm thinking about, I don't have a lot of pictures when I was young, by the way. I'm like, I always ask my parents, did the camera break or something? Did you not have any pictures of me? But I like that. I think I'm going to do that so that you're constantly reminded of your true essence and why you're here in the mission you're on. That's a really cool thing to do. I like that. And I like how you're doing it. You have your sisters too. Very nice.
Sometimes self-care is collective care.
Yes.
Self-care is,
Mhm.
having the self-advocacy to ask. I'm not
Mhm.
asking for help at all, but I've learned that it's about collective care. There's gonna be a day
Yeah.
when I'm stronger than my sister, there's gonna be a day when she's stronger than me.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. So what is the best advice that you've ever been given that still holds true today?
I've gotta really think about that. The best advice. Be brave, be light, be you is the anthem of my business.
Mm.
Yeah, and then that came to me, and then I, chose it as sort of the anthem of my business. It probably came out of that. I called our house the Be Who You Are house, and I think that during my stuck years, I knew I wasn't being my full self. I
Mhm.
put a lot of things on hold just so we could get through those last few years.
Mhm. Mhm.
Specifically, I didn't date the last 3 years of, when my twins were in high school. That was really on hold. But because I wanted them to become who they were. Be who you
Mhm.
are, be who you are. And I saw myself losing who I was. I think that led me to be brave, be light, be you. That probably speaks to that essence of you photo. My 5-year-old self was brave. She was light. She was fully herself.
Uh.
That's what I want for everybody.
Beautiful. So, I know you've read many and probably hard, difficult, but the most influential book that you've read? And what we do, Carolyn, is we compile a suggested reads at the end of the season. So, yeah, just curious if there is an influential book you'd like us to read, besides yours, of course.
Of course. I have 2 competing in my mind. Am I allowed to say 2?
Yes.
I would say The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks was powerful, and I keep coming back to that. I have it in hard copy and audio, and I listen to it again and again and again. And it's because in balance, what I was experiencing was an upper limit problem. The idea, I can't go past this. No, no, I want to go past this. Why can't I go past this? But I want to go past this. I had an upper limit. I just couldn't imagine myself going up to that level. And now I'm at that level. And I'm having another upper limit problem. So that's why I'm reading his book again. The second book I would mention is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Even though I've written a meditation book, and even though I've practiced for 2 decades, and even though I have a lot of author clients who write about meditation and transformation, and I feel like maybe I've read and my daughter's doing research, I feel like maybe I've read everything there ever is to know about it. This book was extraordinary in the way that it really talks about just that relationship of you as the witness to your mind.
Mhm.
And then takes you to, well, who's the witness or the watcher of the witness? Michael Singer has just a beautiful way of doing that. Another book I have in hard copy and on audiobook, and I return to again and again.
Yeah, beautiful. We've had a few suggestions for sure. The untethered soul, yes. So, what are your top three non negotiable self care habits? I can probably guess what one of them is, but yeah, just share with us. What do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, yes, of course, I was going to say meditation, but I'm gonna wrap into that contemplation, reflection, journaling, and just the present moment practice of just now. just this, just
Mm-hmm.
this. But probably then also just nature.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I need to see horizons. There's something about I wrote horizons all over Boundless before I knew that it was gonna be called Boundless. But then I looked at it, I go like, horizons are everywhere. We're always looking at the horizon. So I think that that's one of those important things to me is that I have a house that has a view of the Sandia Mountains. I need to see the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say the other one is just writing, writing my way through it out of
Yeah.
emotion, knowing that no matter how confused I am, I can turn to this page. I can find that new view. I think it's just knowing that that self knowledge, it moves the energy, just moves the energy into a different space to where you can now see what you need to see. So those are the non negotiables.
Very nice. Thank you. So, as we wrap up, Carolyn, what is your legacy? What do you want to be known for?
I think it's the be brave, be light, be you. Be brave, be light, be you.
Yes. Yes. So bold. I love it. So, where can people connect with you? What is the best way? I know you are pretty much all over social media. So, share with us maybe the easiest one to get to.
Well, probably the two easiest ones would be my website, which is just myname.com, carolynflynn.com, and Substack. And on Substack, I write about various things. If you are a writer, there's all kinds of craft tips. There's a lot of behind the scenes at Boundless, but then there are pieces about how to live boundlessly.
Mm.
So those are probably the 2 best places to find out more, but they all get spilled out to all the other places as well.
Yeah, there's ways to connect with you in the other places. Exactly. This is interesting. This is the second time I've heard today about Substack. So I am going to check that out for sure. Well, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I'm so glad we connected and our paths have crossed. Just it's been a delightful conversation, beautiful insights on your journey and what you're doing, and just very, very amazing tips that I think a lot of us can start today, right? Very nicely put. So thank you so much from the
Mm.
bottom of my heart for being here today. And I'm so, so happy that we are connected.
Thank you for what you are bringing into the world with this podcast, and it was just a invigorating and beautiful conversation, so thank you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye, Carolyn.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self Care Goddess podcast. If today's episode inspired you, share it with another woman who's ready to reclaim her vitality and lead from within. To continue your journey, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with me on ritasavoya.com. Until next time, remember self care isn't selfish, it's your superpower. Take a deep breath in, exhale, and keep rising. Ciao for now.